Saquon burn us, and we stop giving up these chunk plays as Waller evades the safety. Horn doesn't get the tackle. Stockton dives, but comes up short. Be something we could get for him. Might even need to be more of a second, as Slayton with a great grab to work on this offseason. Getting a pass rush as Stockton. Gone to him so much in the passing game as we try to find some blocks here, and the ball pops out as they flood one side. Wanham will get the sack, lat release. It's open and he can walk it in for some extra blocking, and that will officially do it. He has gone past 2K this season. Great late on if he could get those. As they go downfield, it's Horn 1v1 and he gets mossed. As it's 3rd and 7, we got a pass rush forming, but they get it out deep, and it's Saquon Barkley gonna take this one to the house, and you could blame that entirely on Horn, at least the coverage side. Gonna flood the left side. Chenault has a step placed out for him, and there is one more on the season for Chenault. Jonathan Mingo is wide open, and there we go. In terms of the records, right? Not improved, but this roster needed to see great turnover, and Steve Smith Sr., I think, has us on the right track. And that brings us to today, where we have the entire offseason and we're getting started in the Pro Bowl week, because I very much expect we have some awards, or at least some guys very much in the running for some awards. So let's jump in, get this thing started off with a bang. MVP, no. Josh Allen wins that one. Coach of the Year, Mike McCarthy. Don't know how I feel about that. As for NFC, Offensive Player of the Year, we did not win. CeeDee Lamb does. But Chuba Hubbard came in second. So hopefully that means we're going to get maybe a little bit of some XP. I'm not quite sure if that's a thing, but I feel like it should be. Defensive Player of the Year goes to Aaron Donald. And yeah, we didn't really have anyone dominant along our defensive line. But now for the rookies. Offensive Rookie does go to the Giants quarterback in Nzurma. He played fantastic last episode, and I expect he's probably going to be their guy for the future. As for us, we didn't really have much of any actual rookies on offense in starting spots, though Jordan Thomas did grow throughout the season and got an opportunity at tight end too, and he ends up being 6th on the list. Now, defensive rookie, we know Cash was in the front running late on, but he also didn't do a whole lot in the last few weeks. Did he hold on? No. His teammate instead, Earl Stockton, ended up surpassing him. And we talked about last week and the fact that we felt like Earl Stockton should very much be at least in the running for it. Not only was he in the running for it, he took it away from Cash, who ended up dropping down to the 3rd spot. So at least it stays within our own organization here and didn't go to Jaden Thurston. But we had a lot of rookies. Only 2 of them, though, ended up on this list. But it does go to Earl Stockton, and I feel like that is much more deservedly so. He made plays consistently throughout the year and improved throughout the year. Meanwhile, Cash, he had a good middle part of the season, but in the last half, we asked a lot more from him, and we found out he's definitely not an outside corner. But still, having 2 guys here in the top 3, that is fantastic. As for best quarterback, we're definitely not on that list there with the amount of turnovers we had. But somehow, Chuba Hubbard is not the best running back. After beating a record set for 65 years, it's Bijan Robinson who gets it. A rival over Chuba Hubbard, even though he hit the 2K total. I don't know, maybe Robinson had a few more touchdowns. Hard to say. CeeDee Lamb is the best receiver. We didn't have anyone really in the running there. Best O-line, no one in the running. D-line, no one. Best linebacker, no, not until you get way down here at 8. But it is still good to see that Earl Stockton is supposedly the 8th best interior, actually not even interior, just all-around linebacker. The fact he is on here when most of these guys are going to be edge rushers, I think that's a big win. As for the corners, this was another one where we saw that our guy in Cash was number 2. Around the midway, a little bit past the midway point, he actually ended up dropping pretty far down to the 6th spot, but still a rookie on this list that is very promising for our future. And lastly, the kicker went to Cade York, not our rookie in Cole Ford, though he was 4th on this list. So our rookies really showed out this year. We just have to find them some help. But as the season is coming to an end here, Super Bowl week, it is the Dallas Cowboys, the 1 seed from the NFC, taking on the Baltimore Ravens, the 4 seed. And that is actually very likely to even happen here in real life. But as for how everyone else did, well, first off, one of our division rivals got blown out by the 49ers, 42-7 in the wild card. 49ers, though, would then go on to lose to the Falcons 27-21. So they beat one of our rivals, not the other. The Falcons did beat the Eagles 35-21. The Vikings, they continued on after beating the Lions 31-13, though did not make it by the Cowboys. And then the Cowboys got the best of the Falcons 38-21. As for the AFC side, Chargers beat the Bills, Chiefs over the Broncos, and Ravens over the Jags. Ravens then went on to beat the Chiefs 24-14. The Colts snuck by the Chargers 28-21, and then it was all Ravens in the AFC Conference Championship 23-7. So who's going to win the Super Bowl? And it would be the Ravens. 38-21 over the Cowboys. It's their third Super Bowl win. Lamar Jackson, your Super Bowl MVP. And if you look over to the right-hand side, you can see what the overall winners really were, not separating between the AFC and NFC. And Earl Stockton is your official Defensive Rookie of the Year. Well deserved. And personally, I would like this outcome. 38-21 with the Ravens over the Cowboys. I'd go with that one for sure. Let me know who you guys want to win the Super Bowl down below. Obviously, my team is out because they did not make the postseason in the final week. Is what it is. But now to move forward and officially start our offseason. And first on our board here is retirees, and we did have one in Andy Dalton. He ends up hanging up the cleats after 14 years. So that takes us to player re-signings, and there is one player, actually several players here, that we definitely need to try to lock down. Ekwonu, one of them, Chuba Hubbard as well. They're probably the main two. Maybe Austin Corbett, though. I kind of want to see what we have in total in free agency. Grover Stewart, probably going to let him go. It's probably going to be a pretty good turnover, but I definitely want to make sure we lock down these guys. And it's actually not a renewal here that we need to do for Ekwonu, but we do need to pick up his 5th-year option, and that is definitely something we're going to look to do. So really the main re-signing here is Chuba Hubbard. Now he's looking at around 3 years, about 24 mil. We'll say 8 mil per season. And we definitely want to lock him down. Again, he was our entire offense, but he doesn't have a whole lot of interest. So we're definitely going to have to boost up these numbers. Let's make it 3 years. It's going to be a lot for at least current running back market. But giving him 3-year deal, 10 mil each season. Will he take that? And he will. Chuba Hubbard returns. Our offense returns. Now, the next guy I want to re-sign is Jerome Sweat. He came in and he really performed well for us. Whether he's going to be in the starting lineup next season or in the rotation, we will find out. But I do want to give him a 2-year deal. We're going to make it a pretty good offer, 5 mil in total. He's either, like I said, going to be rotational or maybe even a spot starter. We will see. But we're going to offer that one, and he will return. Building off of that and keeping some young guys, I do want Max Duggan to be our backup quarterback. So we're going to offer him actually a 3-year deal here. We're going to make it 3 mil per season. He doesn't have a lot of interest, but he loves the contract offer, so we got Duggan back. And lastly, we're going to go for our kicker here in Cole Ford. He is a phenomenal kicker, and I would like to lock him down for the foreseeable future. 4 years, 4.4 mil per season, but he's not interested in signing, so we'll need to come back to him for sure. But as for everyone else, we're moving on from for now. So the punter and Hecker we're moving on from. Kennard, a backup offensive lineman. Mitch Russell we're moving on from for now. He performed decently well, and we still might try to bring him back. He's 22 years old, but he's only 65 overall. I want to see what all of our options are for the defensive line before going back to these kind of guys. As for Julius Chestnut, he didn't really have much of an opportunity. He was injured when he had the opportunity, and we saw Ty Barlow do pretty well. Granted, with that being said, we did not re-sign Ty Barlow for now, but we will probably look to come back to him in open free agency. Rush we're moving on from. Christensen, again, we're going to see what our options are for our offensive line. Dominique Robinson, he struggled with injury as well as just doing anything from the edge rush spot. And I'm considering moving to a 4-3. So again, it just kind of depends on what our options are in free agency. Antonio Sims, some of our backup wide receivers moving on from. George Shepard, maybe will return. Again, we will see. But for the most part, we're keeping things open. We're keeping as much cap room as possible outside of our key guys. And just to keep opportunities available. So let's see what those opportunities are. And we're starting this one off with some big names hitting the open market. Justin Jefferson, the Vikings are not keeping him around. At least they didn't keep him around internally. That might be something we have to figure out if we can work for it. They also have Jalen Waddle available. Nick Chubb is available. There's some good offensive line, at least with Joe Thuney. Then good free safety, and that is another position that I am wondering if we need to address. Overall, there are some big names. Hassan Reddick hitting the board. He is 30 years old though, but still, there is a lot of things we can get done here. So let's find out where we need to go first. And I am very intrigued with Justin Jefferson. The problem we're going to have is he's going to take alone by himself up half of our cap space. And we're going to have to pay Young pretty soon. But it is Justin Jefferson, which would be fantastic. I'll think about that one, but we have other needs first, and that is offensive linemen. We do not currently have an offensive line. There is Deion Dawkins, he's 31, Garrett Bowles, 33. Then there is Jedrick Wills Jr. Out of Bama, he's 26, so he would have time to still progress. What does he look like? He's a star dev. He is very much a pass first, which kind of fits what we do. Run blocking is a little bit of a concern, but again, we primarily pass the ball. This could be a pretty good guy to bring in here for us. And right now, there are no other teams offering a contract. So this is one I would like to get in on, and we might be able to sweeten the deal a little bit here for us. We'll bump down the salary. We'll raise up the bonus. Let's make this a 3-year deal. We'll put in that offer, and he has some interest. Now, if we wanted to go after a big name, Joe Thuney. However, again, he is 32 years old, so he's probably not looking for a long term. It's just a single-year contract, but that would take us down to 40 mil if we just offered this, and he does have other contract offers. So it's not going to be a long-term fix. But he is much better than all the other options who are also on the older side until you get down to Netane Mutai, and he is a 73. That's probably something we could find in the draft even later on. Now at center, again, there's not too many great options. Josh Myers might be the best of the bunch considering age and overall, and he's not really that much better than Max Mitchell, so I'm not feeling like we have to go after him. And probably one of the weaker groups here, right guard, really doesn't have any sort of options. Brandon Scherff is the top. He's an 81, he's 33, and he is still about 10 points higher of an overall than Bozeman, but still it's a 1-year stopgap. And right tackle, not looking all too promising either. Again, probably the best option would be someone like Walker Little, though he's 74 overall, a normal dev. He's very well balanced. He does have decent lead block. If anything, he might need to slide down to a guard spot, and that's something I may consider. Though for right now, he does not have any other interested teams, so let's save it as we only have the 5 offers we could put in. For the defensive line, we need a lot of help for the defense. And again, we could do 3-4 or we could do 4-3, just depends on who all is available. And in terms of at least good age, highest overall at left end, you're going to have Draymond Jones, who's a 78-28. At the right side, Charles Omenihu is 28 years old, 77, but there is also Deo Odeniyingbo, who's 25, 75. How does he look? He's 6'6", 276, so he could be either a 4-3 or a 3-4 rush. And he has some finesse, not much power, a little bit of some block shedding. I can't say it's anything dominant. He's technically not a starter in terms of his ranking, only 35. But that's something we might be able to do and be a little bit more affordable for us. And on top of that, he doesn't have as many people interested, only 1 offer. A little bit lower, you got 2 offers for Joseph Osai. I think that's how that one's pronounced. And he's 25-74 overall. 6'4", 263, so still might be able to play a little bit of both, but not as much block shedding, but slightly better power moves. Down the middle for DT, not a whole lot of great options. All these guys are on the older side, and they're not very highly rated either. The highest is Grover Stewart if we wanted to bring him back for an extra year. If we're looking for edge rush, well, you could try to bring in Hassan Reddick. That would be good for probably 2 or so years and is younger than the next 2 guys and also much higher overall. Over on the right-hand side, there is Owosu Koromoa, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. He does not have much interest in us. He's 25 years old. There's also Odafe Owe, who's going to be a little bit lower overall, a little bit older, but less people interested in him. But he does have more interest in us. And he is 6'5", 257 out of Penn State. He has really good power moves and some pretty good block shed. Yeah, I would all around a really good athlete too. That could be a really good signing. And he's a top 10 right outside linebacker. So I think that is going to be our next move, which would obviously lean us to sticking with a 3-4. So let's put in an offer here for Owe. He's looking for 4 years, about a little over 9 mil per season. Let's go ahead and just bump up the salary a little bit. We'll take down the bonus, 4-year deal. Where does that put us in terms of all of his bids? Pretty good. So that is a good one here for us. Now we do need corner help. And we talked a little bit about maybe trading Horn. That is a good possibility, but we would need someone to replace him as our true number 1. And we need a man style guy. And there is Greg Newsome, good size at 6 foot, 192. He has some interest. He's on the younger side. Only a couple offers coming in for him. Let's take a further look. He is a star dev. Rating wise, good man, good zone, good press, not much of a tackler. So he is on the outside. Works fine by me. I think this is definitely another move we can make. We do have 56.2 mil still left in cap. So let's put in an offer here. He's looking for 4 years, about 13 mil per season. Again, we're going to bump these down a little bit. It'll end up making this 13.5 mil for 4 years. Put in that offer. Now again, where does that leave us? Again, we're the top offer. Now again, trying to move on from Horn. Maybe do we bring in 2 guys out the get-go here because we're not sure what we might be able to find in the draft in terms of corner. I think we have a great guy. Prototypical corner for me. 6'3", 200, Benjamin St. Juste. He is a pretty well-balanced corner in terms of the man versus zone. Both are 81. He's got the press. He's got some tackle ability. All in all, he looks like he could be a pretty good guy. Injury may be a little bit of a concern, but I think that could be really good competition for us. He's not necessarily a number 1 corner, so we shouldn't have to pay that. Plus, no other team's interested. He's not that interested, but I still think that could be pretty good for us. He's looking for 3 years, about 7.25 mil. Well, again, let's just bump these numbers around a little bit. We'll pay him a little bit more because he doesn't have as much interest. We'll put in that offer, and we know we're going to be the top there. We have one more offer, and I know I want to look at some safeties because safeties, it wasn't great for us. We had Sidney Brown. He had some good games. He had some really bad games. And I felt like CJ Gardner-Johnson fit a little bit more as a strong safety. And there is a guy sitting here, Javon Holland, 6'1", 210 out of Oregon. He has a lot of other teams interested. He's not that interested, but he is very much a prototypical zone corner for us, with a little bit of some man coverage. So this could be really good. Tackle's good, zone cover's good. He could fly around the field. He's the number 4 ranked free safety. This would be a massive improvement for our defense and something we might need to try to get our hands in here. So he's looking for a 5-year deal, about exactly 18.5 mil per season. We could bump these up a little bit. Now we are getting a little bit low, under 20 mil on the cap, but we could definitely clear some space if we need to. Where does this even leave us though with Holland? And it's still a good bit below the Patriots. So they are offering a premium deal. However, taking a look at all the other safeties, this would be the best option to properly fit what I'm looking for in a safety. However, one thing we could do is try to bring back George Shepard. Now, he's not necessarily my prototype. He lacks a little bit of some speed. He lacks a lot of man coverage. I don't typically have my free safeties play much man, but he has a little bit of some zone. It's seeing some regression. It's actually a 76. It could be a stopgap kind of player for us until we can find that guy for the future. Or we also don't make any moves. We keep our safeties and see how they do with a better cornerback group supporting them. That is always an option. So for now, considering that I really don't think we're going to get Javon Holland here, I'm going to take away this offer because we're not in the running. And we could use that to get some other spot that we really need help for. Now, where do we go for that? Do we try to bring back Grover Stewart one more year? Did he see much regression at all? It actually doesn't let me see. Okay. Well, in terms of where his numbers sit, block shedding is at an 84 without the morale. Power moves a 76. So he still is going to have a little bit of some rushing ability. I think strength has gone down a little bit. But awareness and play rec still sit at a pretty good spot. We could run it back one more year with Grover Stewart. Or we could try to get in the running here for Joe Thuney. He's, again, probably going to be 1, maybe 2 years. He's a superstar guard, and he's still fitted more towards the pass block, which is what we do. That could be a pretty good fit for us. However, obviously with him, we're in competition with 4 other teams, and he's looking for a 1-year deal that would put our cap around 15. So it would very much limit what we would be able to do with our remaining budget. With Grover Stewart, we have a little bit more, about 5 extra mil. And there's still, I think, a good bit amount of work we need to do with this team. I feel like it might be better for us to try to run it back one more time with Grover Stewart. We're going to lower the bonus, make it 1 year, 16 mil. That moves our cap up to 20. We have more flexibility, and I think that's what we need right now. So let's make this offer, and that will fill out our top 5 guys here. So once again, let's do a quick recap. Greg Newsome, top of his board. Odafe Owe, top of his board. Grover Stewart, only offer. Benjamin St. Juste, only offer. And Jedrick Wills Jr., only offer. So we're at least addressing some offensive line here. Do we get all of them? Let's find out. All but 2 have decided. We're still on the top for Newsome. However, the Packers are coming in hot for Owe. We did bring back Stewart, and we brought in St. Juste as well as Wills. So we need to maybe boost up the offer here for Owe. And for some reason, it doesn't keep the offer I had originally put out for him. We'll stick with the 4 years here. I want to say I bumped this up to 5 and 5.5. What happens if we go 5 and 6? Make it 11 mil per season. That's nearly 2 mil over what he's asking for. Obviously, know that he's going to like it. It does put us back in front. Now, obviously, with us making all those moves, we are out on Justin Jefferson. We knew that probably wasn't going to be something we could do. However, I still would like to take a look here at receiver because we need some help there, and I don't think we're going to find it in the draft. Jalen Waddle, a speedster who has some release. He has 4 offers in, though he's looking for about 22 mil per season. That's not going to fit our budget. We're looking more like a Rondale Moore, however, he's not the prototypical size of which I look for. However, someone like Rashad Bateman, or maybe even Elijah Moore, though obviously Moore has more interest in us, I think I have a little bit more interest here in Rashad Bateman. He has 2 other offers. He's 6'1", a little under 200, star dev. He's got route running easy across the board, which is something we don't really have on roster, and he would essentially take over Juwan Jennings' role, and that might end up demoting Mingo to that 3rd receiver, but I feel like that might be where he fits best. So let's take a look here. Let's put in an offer for Rashad Bateman. He's looking for 3 years, about 10.5 mil per season. Again, we can bump some numbers a little bit. 3 years, 11 mil. We'll put in that one. Where does that leave us on his board? And once again, we're on the top by a good bit. We might even be able to lower that a little, but we can make space on roster if we need to. Now, there is at least one more move I know we need to make, and that is bringing in a safety. And I do want to try to bring back Shepard. Now, luckily for us, no teams have any interest in him right now. Even though he's 23 years old, 71, that's not too bad. We will put in a multi-year offer here, bump this down to 3 mil. Probably will end up taking it, and we have very limited space here. So before we make any more moves, let's run this one more time. Okay, so we did get some more people in. Newsome is in and Bateman is in. We still have offers out for Owe. We are still sitting on top, and we still have Shepard. But with only 6.5 mil left, we got to make some moves. And if we're trying to clear as much space as possible, well, there is Taylor Moton. We would save $17.5 million moving on from him, and he's someone I do want to move on from. It is going to incur a penalty, but I feel like he is someone we could definitely move on from. He has not played well despite the ratings actually not looking that bad. He's a top 6 right tackle. He just has not performed very well for us. Want to see what offers we could get for him. And we do have a few teams looking to make a trade. We got the Commanders offering Taki. Now that would be good if we were moving to a 4-3, but we are not planning on doing that. Plus a 6 and a 7, that's not going to help us out. There is a young corner in Devontae Johnson, 23 years old, 74 overall, not bad. Plus a 6, a 7, and a future 7. Or we get a backup offensive lineman. That one I'm not as interested in. Let's take a look here at the corner in Devontae Johnson. So he is currently listed a slot man style guy out of Texas Tech. Great size, 6'3", 206. He looks very similar to Cash. And while we could definitely use elevating our depth, I don't want Cash to jump out of the starting rotation. But again, this would be good depth here for us. He doesn't necessarily have to be a starter. Again, we've suffered a lot of injuries throughout this season, the series. I think Devontae Johnson might be someone good to bring in. He's not going to come with much cap, I would assume. And no, it's not bad at all. In fact, he was a 5th round pick. And for a 5th round pick with 1 year experience, I don't think that's too bad. I mean, again, very similar to Cash. Yeah, I think that is a move we could definitely do. We bring in a spot of need, and that kind of puts us at a spot where I don't think we have to be aggressive in drafting a corner, considering all the other needs we have. Plus, we pick up a fair few amount of other picks late round, but hey, you never know. We found some good guys late, so let's make this move. Taylor Moton, you're headed to the Jets. We're bringing in some depth players and some picks, plus opening up a good chunk of cap space. Other moves we could make, someone like Shy Tuttle, who just did not perform very well for us. We could save some money with a straight up release, saving 6.5. We incur a penalty of 1.8. Fine with that. And for the most part, the rest of these guys here, pretty negligible. The one other guy I would consider would be Bradley Bozeman, but I want to make sure we have other offensive linemen before we get rid of any more. So let's take a look at our offensive line depth and just see what options we have. So right now we have Aquanu, and we know he's our guy for the future, though we might need to flex him around maybe a little bit. He does have some run blocking ability and actually less pass blocking, so he might fit more so as a right tackle instead. And at right tackle right now, we currently don't have a starter. In fact, Ricky Lee is probably going to get cut anyway. So we're good for our 2 tackles. Down the middle, we do need a guard. We have Bozeman and we have Mitchell. So we need at least one more guy. So I'm not going to move on from Bozeman yet. But after making those adjustments, we are up to 27 mil left for our cap. So let's go back to this offensive line. We know we need some more help. Where can we find some more affordable deals? Well, the top guy left for the interior of the offensive line, you're going to have Cody Whitehair, 76, 33. He has interest, which is why I'm putting him above Andrew Norwell. Or there is Mutai, who does have interest. He's only 3 overall lower, and who knows if we would find someone in the draft at a spot where we could go. I just don't think he would fit very much. He has the power, but he's not a fantastic guy. And we could just stick with most of the ones we have. We do need to bring in at least one. As for center, we got a couple different options. 33 years old. You could go with Mitchell Morris. That's about 10 mil. Josh Myers, who has a little bit of interest, 6 mil. And then right guard, you have Brandon Scherf, 81, 33 years old, looking at about 8 mil. Or you could drop down to a little bit below 7, and we try to bring back Austin Corbett. We're at least familiar with him. He's familiar with us. And he's, for the most part, pretty balanced, though he did very much struggle against Aaron Donald and a few of the other really good defensive tackles we've gone up against in this last season. But this still might be a solid move to make. So we'll go with the familiarity. It'll buy us a couple years to really try to wait and find the right guy to maybe get in the draft, or even we might end up still finding someone in the draft. We'll put in this offer, though he did have other guys interested, and that pretty much leaves us level with the Raiders. Now, trying to pull a veteran move here and hopefully try to also save a little bit of money in the process. Cameron Jordan, he is really interested in coming here. He wants to play against the Saints, get a little bit of some revenge. And he's looking for around 10 mil. However, there are no other teams interested in bringing him in, so we could lower that offer with his interest. He still has some decent block shedding and power moves. It's a stopgap situation because, again, we still have a lot of building we need to do for this line. And Jordan will bring in a mentor tag as well. So I think we could definitely try to make this one work. We're going to have to lower the money a little bit. He's probably not going to like it, but it's what's going to fit us a little bit better. We'll put in that offer. If he wants to join us, fantastic. Now, I think we're sitting at a spot, despite having an open offer we could place. We're low on cap room right now, so we need to find out who all we are actually getting here. So we need to finish off and see if any of these guys are going to join. And all but Cam Jordan have decided. Now, we were in the front for most of them. Oweh is in. And Shepard is in. However, we did not get our offensive lineman, and I feel like we're missing one other. Or actually, no, that would have been all of them, including Cam Jordan. So where did Corbett end up deciding to go? It was the Raiders, I believe, who had the other offer. And indeed, he did go to the Raiders. So we still need to find some offensive line help, but we only have 11.9 mil left in cap. So let's jump to the next week, see if we do end up getting Cameron Jordan, and then maybe make some decisions from there. And as we do get to the next week, no, Cameron Jordan has not decided, but now it's showing us with 18.7. So it finally took in all the actual offers and the guys that actually signed. So we have a little bit more space now. We still need an offensive lineman. We need a starter. Deion Dawkins still sitting here. Garrett Bowles. It's not going to be a long-term fix, but it could be one-year deals. As for Dawkins, 84 star dev. He's more favoring the pass. Again, that's primarily what we do, but we need some guard help. And I don't feel like he is a great guard as the lead block is low. As for Garrett Bowles, slightly lower overall, a little bit older, star dev once again, and a little bit more balanced. He probably could play a little bit of some guard. With the run block finesse being an 85 as well, that might be a decent fit. Now, I've found myself working back over to Walker Little, mostly due to the fact that he's on the younger side for offensive lineman, 26. He is only the normal dev, but he's balanced. He has some lead block, and he's probably going to be a good bit cheaper than any of the other veteran guys we could put in offers for. And we could probably use maybe at least one, possibly even two more offensive linemen. So Walker Little, I do want to put an offer in here. There's not much interest, but he's not getting much interest. We'll end up lowering the salary. We'll boost up the bonus. We'll put in that deal. It's not a major one, but I still think it's something he would end up signing, leaving us with enough space to make one more offensive lineman signing. And I think we're going to go with David Andrews. Again, we might be able to lower the offer a little bit. Star dev, it's a one-year stopgap, but he has some decent lead block. He's more fitted towards the run side, which is something we don't have too much for our offensive line. So this would maybe end up helping out a little bit in rebalancing us. So we're going to give him an offer. Now he's looking at about 7 mil per season, but he doesn't have anyone else really interested. So we're going to lower this to 1 year, 6 mil, save a little bit of some money, and hopefully these guys end up signing. So this will probably round out our free agency, and then we'll get towards the draft because we've spent a lot of money here. So let's see if these guys end up signing. One evaluation, no. Second evaluation, one is gone, and it is Walker Little, and he has joined us. So we got two more. Hit it one more time, and they are holding out for the final week of offers. And getting to that final week, Cameron Jordan does finally sign with us. He took the lower money. Still need David Andrews to come on in. And with that evaluation, he's no longer there. And he will join us. So we get most of all the guys that we actually were going after. I think we missed out on one. I feel like that is a really good free agency for us. We brought in a lot of key players for the future, as well as some good guys for 1-2 year stopgap. So to go back over, Greg Newsome II joins us as our number one corner. Again, we plan on moving on from Horn. Oweh joins us, and hopefully he's finally going to give us a pass rush that we did not have last season. Grover Stewart returns, and we'll go back to the start, subbing in maybe a little bit of Sweat and some of the other young guys. Rashad Bateman comes in as wide receiver 1, and That maybe means we might be moving on from Jennings. We'll have to take a look. Benjamin St-Juste, at least maybe cornerback 2 we'll get. Just at least competition. We'll see how that ends up going. We brought in Cam Jordan as a mentor for our defensive line, and he probably will see some starting play. Willis is in for a starting spot on the offensive line, as well as Andrews, maybe even Walker Little, and we brought back George Shepard. All in all, feel like that is a very good free agency. There are still some guys we might add after the draft if we have the cap space for it. So from here, what do we need to find in the draft? Well, first off, let's go by position. We have our starting quarterback. We have our backup quarterback. We could use maybe a running back. Obviously, Chuba Hubbard, our main guy. Cam Akers didn't do much with his opportunity, and I have interest in bringing back Ty Barlow, but again, we see maybe with a late round pick what's there. As for receivers, I think we're pretty good here. Obviously, we might be moving on from Jennings. That might need to be a trade to maybe help out with some of that penalty, though I still think we take some of that on. But we could find some guys maybe later on. They're not going to be slotted into the starting spot. I really want to give a good go with Bateman, Shenault, and Mingo as our primary 3. There is, however, possibly a need at tight end. Isaiah Likely was pretty solid after we brought him in for the first half of his time with us, but then the later part of the season, he started to drop off. We gave Jordan Thomas more opportunities. I don't think Thomas necessarily took off with him. And on top of that, Hayden Hurst is seeing some regression. Despite really liking him and him being really good for us, he did see some regression across the board here, though the biggest ones come to his catching and catching in traffic. So a little bit of some good, a little bit of some bad. He's still a star dev. He still has some speed, but overall he is regressing. He's not as much of a run blocker any longer. So if there is a guy sitting there, I think we could bring in a tight end. As for the offensive line, we have Ekwonu, who's going to be moving over to right tackle, and we have Jedrick Willis, who I think could fill in perfectly fine at left tackle. He's not much of a run blocker, he's a pass blocker, and hopefully that ends up working itself out pretty well. As for the interior for our offensive line, well, we have David Andrews, who could very well just stick at center. Bozeman could be a backup, or we could go ahead and cut him. At right guard, we have Max Mitchell. He could stick at right guard. And we brought in Walker Little, who I feel like we will probably move to a guard spot. I feel like he might fill that spot in just a little bit better than at tackle. He's pretty well balanced, but the strength isn't fantastic. So if he could have a little bit of help as he would at guard, I think that would fit him pretty well. For the defensive line, we have Cameron Jordan. That's a 1 year for sure. He's 36 years old. We don't really have a right end. We do have Grover Stewart back at DT, and I would be perfectly fine if Jerome Sweat is the primary backup there, as well as a little bit from Ika. But we need at least one more defensive lineman, and that's where I expect to go in the first round. As for edge rush, DJ Johnson is still here, as well as Braxton Fitzgerald. Neither one of them did much with their opportunities last year, which is why we went after Owe. Currently, he's the only true guy we have going forward. There is DJ Wanham, who just didn't impress last year, and Anagbar was awful. We'll probably end up cutting him. So we could also use with an edge rusher. As for the interior linebackers, we do have Deion Jones, and he's sticking around for sure because that's way too much in terms of a penalty compared to savings. So we'll be keeping him. Unfortunately, he is not a mentor, but we know Hodgins and Stockton, there are guys moving forward. If there's a guy sitting late on that looks intriguing for an inside backer, I'd be fine picking someone up. Corner, I think we are more than good at now. Again, I do plan on moving on from JC Horn. We're going to be trading him somewhere. He was just awful last year, and I don't expect him to have some miraculous return this season. So we're going to go with Newsome, St-Juste, and Cash. We also brought in, via the trade, Devontae Johnson. So we're sitting really good at corner. It is not a need. Safety, I think, is somewhere where we could look to make a move if something presents itself. Gardner Johnson could move over to strong just fine. Sidney Brown struggled last year. He's 25 years old. He's down at a 73, but that's with some morale. He's probably more around a 75. But he's just not quite there. Maybe would be a good third safety, but I just don't trust him. So if there's a safety, then sure, we could definitely go after that. But I think the biggest need right now, defensive line, then edge rush, maybe then offensive line. And then from there, it's kind of BPA at most spots, really just outside of corner and probably quarterback. So I think we got things set. We need to solidify where we're going in the first round. And luckily for us, we have some focused scouting that we could use to really help us determine where we're going. Again, edge rush and interior defensive line is what we need. Now, there is a top 5 guy here in Max McCall. He has some block shedding. He's really just finesse moves, and he might be able to get away with that at an outside guy. But I don't see anything there that really tells me top 5, and I don't want to overdraft anyone because we've done that a little bit too often. As for the right end spot, Tim Horn, he does look like he could be that dude. He's 95% scouted, A power moves, A finesse, B block shedding. He could really be phenomenal. And he comes in at a good size for outside linebacker, 6'4", 250. He's 21 years old out of Kentucky. Physicals, well, he's fast, pretty decent strength, could be a little bit better, but as an edge guy, perfectly fine. He's going to come off the edge with speed. I mean, there's not much here you could ask more from outside of injury. That is a concern at a D. Plus, he would also have to drop to the 4th pick, which is where we are picking in the first round. But awareness and play rec, they're all there. It's just how consistently will he be on the field. Outside of him, there is Cortland Mincy, who does seem intriguing at 278, probably a little too heavy to play an outside linebacker, but could play on the defensive line here for us. And he's going to have a little bit more bench reps, more comfortable with that for the defensive line while still keeping pretty good athleticism. Awareness is still really good. Power moves is there. Just doesn't have the finesse. He's all power, a little bit of some block shed. Injury, though, is a safer bet with him at a B. And in terms of early round guys, those are probably the top options as Taj Gee, a round 1 to 2. He only has a little bit of some power, not much of the block shed to help out. And over at the left-hand side, again, the other options, not all too promising. Maybe a little bit with Xavier Powell, but not a first rounder. I feel like that's more of a second. DT, you're looking strictly for interior defensive linemen. And we talked a little bit about James Castaneda throughout the season, and the block shed and finesse definitely solid. Not as much there with the power move, so I wouldn't see him as a top 5, though I am perfectly fine trading back, getting maybe 2 first-round picks. That could be solid here for us. There is the possibility that Kendrick Pearson, a round 1 to 2, might be the better option, though the finesse, A to C, he's a power rusher. It's either going to be a B or a C, so those guys probably pretty similar. If we're looking at edge rushers, unfortunately, the one thing I really hate here, that they need to just sort it to edge rush because you have to go in and check all these guys individually. It's annoying, but a round 1 speed rusher in Steve Jackson. He has some block shedding, A to B. Finesse is also A to B. Power is a D. So, okay, tackling is a C there, and injury A to B, so he's going to be pretty good in terms of his injury. As for the physicals, he's not going to be very strong, but he has a pretty good athletic build. After him, you have Benjamin Hawkins, a round 1, still at 6'4", 251, 21 years old out of Boise State. He's going to be a little bit faster, but about the same strength. He's a power rusher with B to D block shed, A power moves, C finesse. So comparing him to Steve Jackson, he might have the better top moves. We would have to scout both to fully figure them out. Then you move into round 1 to 2 with Isaiah Kidd at 6'2", 248, 21 years old. He's a speed rusher with the A finesse. Not much in terms of block shedding, maybe a little bit of some power moves, but you're definitely taking a step back here. And as you move in that same range to Jelani Harris out of Oklahoma, 6'5", 267, 21 years old once again. It's a similar kind of thing here, though he does have pretty good speed, slightly better strength, but he's not as quick or agile. Does have the A to C for power, B to D for block shed, C finesse, and he is a power rusher. So the power rush is at least going to be a B, and that leaves a good range for the block shed. So there's a lot of unknown with these outside backers. And that was just over on the left side. At the right side, you do have 3 options for the top, including a top 5 projection here in Jamario Gibbons, 6'4", 260, 23 years old. So he's older than most of the ones we've looked at so far. He's got the speed, he's got the strength though. As for the actual skill set, we know it, but there's no A there, and that leaves a little bit to be desired. Is it a top 5? I don't think so without having that A. As for Ben Duarte, as a true round 1, a speed rusher, 6'2", 260, 22 years old out of Michigan State. He's also pretty fast. You don't quite know the true strength, 27 to 24 reps, but still. And he does have A to C finesse, B to D power with B block shed. Again, he's a speed rusher. So I'd imagine that is an A. And then for the power moves, it could be a B anywhere to that D. And then lastly, again in the round 1 to 2 projection, you do have Quincy McCullough, who is 6'3", 255, 21 years old out of Florida. Not as fast, strength sitting around the same. He does have A power moves and B block shed with the C finesse. And it is a power rusher and also has A awareness. He's not as good of a tackler though, that is a C. So you could really go with just about any of these guys. One thing to note though, if you go after a guy like McCullough, then in round 1 to 2, maybe you could drop back out of the top 5 and maybe still be able to get an interior pass rusher and maybe an edge rusher, depending on how well people are trading for us. And if we go after a guy like James Castaneda, then we might actually be able to do both. As a reminder for Castaneda, in case you haven't seen the updates throughout the season, he is 6'5", he's a run stopper, 305, 22 years old out of Notre Dame. He's a strong dude, 39 to 36 reps. He's not very fast, he's a true DT. But he has the awareness, play rec, the block shed, and the finesse. He's an A tackler. Injury is concerning, it is a C to a D. If we're looking for maybe any other guys later on for the defensive line, there are some guys with a little bit of some talent, a lot of it more singular, like Trey Fowler here. It does have the A finesse, but not much anywhere else. Sean Burgess, the B block shed, but not much of anything else. Keenan Duke, A finesse, again, not much of anything else. There's not going to be that top guy laid on, but maybe a solid option, a rotational guy, or just not the best possible, but still good. I think where we're going to find our best talent later on is going to be the offense. There's a lot of first to second round guys, but there are some decent guys later on for the offensive line that we might be able to fit in. Someone like Peter Peterson, great name, day 3 talent, looks to be more so of a pass blocker. We could develop some pass blockers, especially at a left tackle. Over at right guard, you're going to have some options in the second and later on. Like Mike Patterson here does look pretty intriguing in the round 3 to 4. He is 6'5", 327, 21 years old out of Clemson. He's got some good strength, all around really good athlete. He's not going to be as much of a power blocker, but again, we kind of run a finesse, spread it out kind of offense. So all in all, I see some pretty intriguing ratings and someone that might deserve some further looks. Or even honestly, in the round 3 to 4, you could just take a shot on the guy, and if it pans out, great. At center, this is where you're going to find probably some of the best later talent, as I typically find centers to be the best offensive linemen to draft here in Madden. Max Clifford around 3 to 4, 6'2", 303, 22 years old out of Vanderbilt. He's got a little bit of some strength, overall athletic guy. Again, not as much of the power, but has some decent finesse. Another round 3 to 4. You can find starting offensive linemen later on, which is why I'm not pushing for them early, despite there being a lot of pretty early talent. And honestly, maybe even some of these round 1 guys, they fall into the second round, and if so, we might be able to just go ahead and swoop them up. Now, we did also talk about tight ends possibly going later on. There are some guys that look tremendous early on. Round 1 to 2, you got McQueen, Devin, and Shields. All look like they could be really solid. Later on, not as good of talent, but someone that might be able to fill in a little bit. Someone like Andrew O'Neal seems intriguing. Not much of a deep route runner, but still some intriguing talent. There's also some guys out of the first round at running back that seem intriguing. Mark Byers out of Texas A&M. He's 5'11", 230, though listed as an elusive back. He does look very promising. 22 years old, and he's got a little bit of some speed, but not that top end speed, with some power to his game. B trucking, but also at the same time, a little bit of some catching, B to a C, and that's kind of the style of running back we've been looking for to team up with Chuba Hubbard. Not saying we go at running back in the round 2 to 3, but still a pretty solid talent. And there's a guy later on even with a similar build in Matt Toller out of Clemson, 5'11", 204. So lighter, but still talent range comparable. And he runs a little bit faster, though not as strong. He still has similar hands. Trucking might be there a little bit as well. Got good ball carrier vision, good carrying. Just the moves aren't very polished. But I think the last group we need to talk about is safety, because that's been something we've talked about throughout this one. And there are some options here and there, whether they're top end. I'm looking for at least a zone-focused safety for us, so we have someone there maybe for the future. And out of these guys, no one exactly really standing out. Maybe Matt Downs out of Michigan State, good size. He has a range that might end up working out. So do we end up going with a safety in round 2 to 3? Kind of hard to tell. Depends on what we're able to do with the defensive line early on, though. Downs 6'1", 203, 21 years old. He's got some okay speed. Could be a little bit better, but has a pretty good 20-yard shuttle. As for the skill set in particular, the play rec is a little bit low, which is concerning. Tackling, nothing fantastic. I don't think we have that true guy for the future, so we just might not worry about safety this season. And I talked a little bit about maybe finding a late round interior linebacker to start developing, basically as a replacement for Deion Jones eventually. And there is an intriguing day 3 in Britton Hartwell out of Boston College, 6'2", 228. He's a field general at 21 years old. And unfortunately for us, he did not participate in his pro day nor the NFL Combine. So we just don't know much outside of good speed, good strength, or he just kind of looks like a good to decent athlete. But the skill set seems really intriguing. B block shed, A zone coverage, A catching even. I mean, all around Britton Hartwell looks like someone that we should be going after. He does have injury concerns, C to an F. But all in all, I think that could be a great late round talent. But as for solidifying where we go early on, I think it really comes down to the edge rush and the defensive line. And in where we think we might have the best options, Tim Horn, again, we talked a little bit about him, definitely seems intriguing, but that would have to be a no trade down scenario, which would mean we might have less of a chance of finding the interior lineman and the edge rusher. Or we could go after some guys in the mid rounds here, or let's say mid rounds, but round 1 to 2s. And at DT, we really have 2 different options, which is annoying because we only have 3 guys we could select here. And I would like to do both Pearson and Castaneda, but I feel like we need a good bit more information on some of these edge rushers, even more specifically on Quincy McCullough. So what we might end up doing is just going with those 3. We'll give it to Quincy, and then we'll slap it on these DTs as well. Pearson and Castaneda, we've looked at them for a good bit throughout this season, and one of them, maybe even 2 of them, are going to end up being our guys. And luckily for us, Madden at least worked for the defensive tackles. We did get some more information. Unfortunately, we did not solidify all the information on Pearson, but Castaneda is a true round 1 talent. If we could get him later on, that could be fantastic for us. So let's take a final look here at Castaneda. You got the player notes on the side. You can read them if you want. We're jumping over to the skills. And it is pretty well balanced. I could also probably see that power moves being pretty close to the block shed and finesse even, just because he seems like that guy. Injury, though, is still a concern with it being a D. As for Pearson, don't think we really took much of a look at him earlier. He does have some pretty decent 40, pretty decent bench reps all around. He's a really solid athlete, and he still has that same injury concern, but you're just not having as much block shedding. So he's a pure rusher at 6'5", 305. Maybe with some of that speed he has, he could play a left or right end, which we don't currently have that guy on a roster, where we do have a true DT right now. So do you bank on having a veteran for 1-2 years and go after a different kind of style player, or do you go with a player that you just feel like is the better talent? And that's what I feel like we have with Castaneda. As for the edge rusher, I don't think Madden worked. I don't think we got any more completion percentage, because why would we? Really wish Madden would fix that. So again, with McCullough, you have the power moves, you have the block shed, the awareness is an A as well. There's some ranges in a lot of places, but most of those ranges are pretty decent. He's just not going to catch the ball, and he is a little bit injury prone, B to a C. But all in all, if we can manage to get both of these guys, I think that would be the perfect first round for us. And again, we have Horn who we could trade. And if we just want to take a glance here at mock draft 5, do they have Castaneda or McCullough going in the first round? They do have McCullough. They actually have him going 19th to our rival in the Buccaneers. So we could drop back from our spot up here at 4, maybe to around spot 15 or so, and still be able to get our edge rusher in Quincy McCullough. But what about Castaneda? As we get down the board here, they do not have him listed as a first rounder, though that would, obviously with us trading out of the 4th spot, would definitely shake things up. So we'd have to keep an eye on that for sure. But I think that is the top 2 picks we need to bring in. So with that said, I think it's time we get into the draft. We have Horn we could deal during the draft. It used to not be a common thing, but I feel like that's become more and more common over the last few drafts, is trading players in the draft. So let's pause things here. Let's just jump forward to our spot, see what happens. The Bears, they select number 1 overall, and they go with left end Max McCall out of Buffalo. We took a look at him, and yeah, definite intrigue there. As for one of our rivals, the Saints, 2nd overall, they select a quarterback, Aaron Schmidt out of Oklahoma State. We got a new quarterback in division to beat up on, hopefully with this improved defensive line. And now for the Seahawks, a far fall from where they feel like they probably should have been. I don't know if they replaced Geno yet. Do they go after his replacement here? No, they go Tim Horn, right end, out of Kentucky. Now we are on the board. We know what we want to do. We would love to trade down and probably find ourselves 2 first-round picks. But how far can we fall? Texans, they are offering a 12 and a future 4th, a current 7. I don't feel like that's a great haul. We're not trading with the Buccaneers, especially since they want McCullough. The Vikings, interesting, but they're at 27, so that's not going to help us out much. No first rounder for the Tennessee Titans this year. 16, not going to help us out. I think that was actually a little bit before the Bucks, but still not my favorite spot. Did the Bucks actually say 19th? So we just need to at least be before 19, mostly. Raiders, we could get a 2nd next year, a current 7. Jaguars, they could give us a extra first later on, but the first not going to work. No from the Giants, not trading with the Falcons. And not really great there. So Texans, you drop to 12. You pick up an extra 4 next year and a current 7. Or you go with the Raiders and you drop back to 16, still before where the Buccaneers are expected to go. And you get a 2 next year and a current 7. Those are the only 2 that put us before the Buccaneers and should still be in a play to pick up McCullough. Obviously, Castaneda not in the top. We would still have to move back into the first round, and we would have some picks plus Horn to try to do that with. I would feel safer with the 12th selection, but it's not letting us, go back at the Texans in this menu to try to make a better deal here for us. So let's try to customize this offer, essentially just negotiating this one. And I'm more curious if they would go with this. A first round this year plus their 3rd this year, and then the 7th for next year. I feel like that's similar-ish. We're obviously bumping it up from what they were offering before. We'll submit that offer, and not quite. So we will just go ahead and remove that 7th, and that should get the trade done. No, still not even. Okay, well then what about we take out the 4 this year, or take out the 3, we put in their 4, and give us like a 5th round pick or something in 2027. How about that? Is that a deal done? It is. So unless anything crazy happens, we should be good to get McCullough. But let's go forward together. The Texans select right outside linebacker Jamario Givens, Florida State. Again, someone we could have gone after, but we're trying to go after the biggest bang for our buck. The Browns, they select left tackle out of Alabama, Trent Brooks. Giants on the board. Do they team someone up with their young quarterback? No, they go defense instead. It is Steve Jackson, left outside linebacker out of USF. Get another option we could have gone with. Tennessee Titans, they go Benjamin Hawkins. So we're definitely going on a run here of edge rushers. The Rams, they go with left end, Daryl Nixon, out of Oregon State. Cardinals, as we're getting closer and closer, left tackle, Keelan Stallworth, out of Louisville. Patriots, they select left end, Javier Powell, Mississippi State. And right before us, the New York Jets select right outside linebacker Ben Duarte, out of Michigan State. So our guy in McCullough is still there. Could he be possibly overdrafted here, considering we don't have that last bit of information on him? Maybe. But also, maybe he is as good as we expect he will be. A, power moves. B, block shed. A, awareness. He doesn't have fantastic finesse, but it's doable. And we're going to really be putting out a power rush, forward rush, with us having the signing of Owe plus drafting McCullough. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, this one pans out, as McCullough is a hidden dev with 82 speed, 81 strength, pretty good acceleration, agility. All around, he looks like a pretty solid athlete, and he's going to learn from Owe. Now, we just have to wait till the 10th pick in the second round and hope that our guy at DT does not go. So let's just take a look at the board here before we go anywhere and see where we're at. Well, Pearson, obviously, he's going to be the top. So if he goes, then we become a little bit nervous about where Castaneda will eventually go. We need to find some defensive line help. If we miss out on him, well, maybe Cortland Mincy's still available. That is a backup option, though he might go beforehand. And then we're about out of top end options. It becomes singular talent players. So we're going to move forward. I'm just going to go through, and if we see our guy go or we see Pearson go, then we'll jump back in and go pick by pick. Again, we are next up, pick 10, round 2. So let's move forward. And I'll be honest, I just had a slight heart attack because I accidentally hit the button one too many times, and instead of skip to the next pick, I went to next user pick. But I'm also going to have a little bit of spoiler. I did check, and we're all okay. Castaneda has not gone, though. He is second on the board. But we will be getting our top 2 targets, really addressing the defensive line and edge rush. James Castaneda, we know he's a round 1 talent. We're getting him the 10th pick in the second round. A deal for sure, as he is not a hidden dev. That's a surprise for me. 92 strength, 72 speed, 80 acceleration. I definitely expected him at least have star dev, but it is what it is. We still get him at a good spot, a cheaper spot for us. We have some help for the defensive line. Now from here, we don't pick into the 3rd round. That's where I expect us to go offensive line. I'm not going to do any sort of trading up. We're just going to straight on jump to that spot and see what we have available. It's BPA from here on out. And before we even go look at the offensive lineman, I just want to take a look here at Junior Chason, a receiver that has dropped from the round 1 to 2. He's 6'4", 221, 22 years old, out of Eastern Michigan. Physical type of receiver with some decent speed to him, though very low agility and acceleration. He's got a variety here, but no medium route running. So I don't expect much from the route runnings. Catching is a concern, but has a little bit of some release. I don't know, maybe we catch him as he falls later on. But let's take a look at the offensive line. Left tackle, he got some day 3s, now looking great. Right guard, there is Landon Columbus, still available around 2 to 3. There are obviously other options we could go after, but let's take a look at him first. 6'3", 329, 21 years old. He has some pretty good attributes here for the physicals. All in all, like that. Power, not great. Doesn't really have any A upsides. Down at center, though, we do have some A upsides in Max Clifton. We looked at him earlier on. At right guard, There's also Mike Patterson, another guy we looked at earlier on, and then at tackle some day threes. So we definitely could try to find some guys here, but which one do we go after? Would have been great if we had a little bit more in terms of focus scouting. But Max Clifton, 6'2", 303, 22. He's got some bench. All around, again, good athlete. He has the potential for the pass blocking to be A to a C, as well as the same for run block finesse. Pass block power, B to a D, probably sitting around the same C as the run block power. But the finesse looks like they should be pretty solid. As for Patterson, looks like he's probably a little bit stronger, but again, still doesn't quite have that power. Pass block is going to be at the ceiling lower, but all in all across the board, maybe a little bit better. Now, if either of these guys were to fall to the 20th spot in the third round, we could end up with both, which could be nice. But which do we think is the better option? Hard to tell. But I think I'm going to give the edge to Max Clifton, and I will explain why. We run a lot of screens, so we need our guys to get out there quicker. And Max Clifton, his 40 is about 0.2 faster than that of Patterson. He has a little bit less bench, but I think that's okay with the quicker speed and agility. Plus, on top of that, Clifton is quote unquote smarter. His awareness is an A versus Patterson is a B. So I'm going to go with Clifton here. And who knows, maybe Patterson's still available with our next pick. But we're going to center Max Clifton. He's a hidden dev, 87 strength, 77 speed with 84 acceleration. He's getting out there quickly and hopefully setting a good edge for Hubbard to do his thing. Unfortunately, Patterson is not available as we get to our next pick. There is still around 3 to 4 in Will Potts. He's a pass protector. I don't think we need to go after any more offensive linemen here. So now it really is BPA. And once again, I'm coming back to Junior Chason. He just seems intriguing, but I feel like there might be other intriguing players that we could go after maybe later on. I just don't think we have any room for a receiver. As for the tight ends, most of my favorite guys towards the top, they've all gone. And I've been searching for a while here, finding where we want to go. And I'm feeling like the best spot is going to be at receiver. And there is Trevante Hill, someone we haven't really looked at. He's 23 years old, so he's going to be on the older side of rookies. At 6 foot, 190, he's a deep threat out of Penn State. He's got some decent speed, not much strength to his game at all, but he's a pretty solid athlete with elite agility and acceleration, and we could maybe use someone to develop a little bit. And he has the release, so he can play a little bit on the outside. He has the deep route running, but it's the medium and short that aren't really there. Spec catch is a B, catching is a C to an F, with catching in traffic A to a C. So there seems to be some intriguing ability here, but he's definitely not going to be a for sure talent out the get-go. Again, he's 23. The other option, as we've looked at already, is Junior Chason, who's 22. He's going to be a little bit slower, a little bit stronger, just overall, he's a much different style of athlete. But we don't know much about his route running outside the fact that we know the medium is a D. Again, the catching is a concern, but he has some release. But is he really going to be that style of receiver that we need? Because we've struggled to get open. And I don't know how well someone that runs about a 4.5 or so is going to get open with a lack of route running versus the other guy who has more speed might be able to. But if we look at just the board in general, it is weird. Trevante Hill has dropped 8 spots. Meanwhile, Chason's gone up 30, yet he's dropped all the way to nearly out of the third round. So these are two very intriguing receivers that honestly we might even be able to pick up both. So why not try that? We pick again in about half a round. We have a lot of picks you can still see. We're not going to be using all those. We'll definitely be bundling some of the late rounds up for future better picks. But let's go with Junior Chason here. and see how well he is as we catch the falling receiver. He's a normal dev as expected, 88 speed with 88 acceleration. Now, not gonna lie, part of me is kind of hoping he has pretty decent run blocking ability, and maybe we give him a try at tight end. At 6'4", 221, he would be a light tight end, but maybe it would work out. I don't know. We're gonna give him a shot. But we would not get the opportunity to check the other receiver. He did end up going as we move to our next pick, so probably gonna go off of receiver here, and I'm going to see if that inside backer is still available, and indeed he is. Britton Hartwell. I just have a feeling he's going to be really good as we enter the 4th round here. Could be an overdraft, but I just feel like he's going to be a solid guy. The ratings look good. Injuries happen. We did not have Hodgins for about half the season last year. So let's get some insurancy and go with Britton Hartwell, inside backer out of Boston College. He's the hidden dev. He's 86 speed, 77 strength, 86 acceleration at 21 years old. We might have 3 linebackers for the future. And what's even better, we're right back up. We're not going far. Now, tight end is still a spot that I feel like we might need to try to find someone, whether it's just a little bit of some competition. And right now, we only have one guy left on our board, and it is Donovan Callaway. Now, obviously, we talked about the receiver maybe being able to play over here. He's a possession style at 22 years old. Speed, though, he's top of the class. Coming in, though, at 264 at 6'6", he's running a 4.6, if not quicker. That is a good talent. Now, the deep route running, not there. But catching traffic, catching, route running, those are all there. Not much of a break tackle. It's a little bit of a gamble here, but I think it's one I'm willing to make as our guy Hayden Hurst keeps getting older. Likely was questionable as well as Jordan Thomas last year. I don't see any reason why not to go after Callaway here. And that is exactly where we go, and it's another hidden dev at 84 speed, 86 acceleration with 84 agility. Strength at a 71 is not bad. I'm liking the talent we're bringing in here. Now, as we jump, again, just a few more picks later, 4th round still, I would like to find some more help for our defensive line to see if there is anyone with maybe a little bit of dual ability, and it could be both for interior defensive line or edge rush. I'm perfectly fine finding something for either. Just need someone to stand out here. There's maybe a little bit of Lamontagne. I think I'm mispronouncing that one. We got Timmy, and he has A to C finesse. He's a speed rusher. That could be a B, that could be a C. Intriguing, though, maybe a little bit later on. And down the middle at DT, well, there is Luke Emery, who's a round 3 to 4, and he's a run stopper, so that power moves is either most likely going to be a C to a D, but that's going to be at least balanced talent throughout. And you could have something similar here with John Kellum. Obviously, the power move's not as much, but the run stopping, A to C block shed with C finesse, that does seem a little bit intriguing. I'm leaning on Luke Emery here, but in the day 3s, we do have Jaleel Green, who is a power rusher with some decent speed and power overall, pretty solid athlete, and he has B power moves, B block shed with A to B awareness. That could also be pretty solid as well. So we've got some options laid on. Green, though, is 23, so on the older side. Then out of Princeton, over on the right-hand side, another day 3, you do have Kyle Harold. And he, again, decent speed, pretty good speed, decent bench all around. Again, pretty solid athlete. Skill set, A to C block shed with A to C finesse. Now, again, it said that he's a speed rusher. So at worst, these are all C's. Could also be A finesse, B block shed, or it could be B for finesse and C block shed. Either way, balanced here. So we definitely have a couple options late at a spot that really wasn't very good for us this season. He wouldn't be getting the starting spot most likely. He's also 23. But considering both those edge rushers were day 3, I still think Luke Emery is probably our best option here, 22 years old. He's not very fast, a little over a 5-second 40, but he's got some decent strength to his game. And with the even spread of his talent here. He could play at any of the defensive line spots, interior defensive line spots. And we're just hoping the injury isn't a D. But outside of that, I think this would be an intriguing depth rotational spot. So let's go with Luke Emery. A normal dev with 86 strength, 70 speed, 80 acceleration. That is a 3-4 left or right end. Now, as we got to our next selection, which is the 4th in the 5th round. So a good drop. The left outside backer, he's gone. And on top of that, the right outside backer is also gone. So we probably could have went after any of them. Instead, we're getting just the DT, which is okay. We had better depth, I feel like, for the outside backers. There are a couple options still there. Javon Long doesn't seem all too intriguing. And most of the rest of these guys, they're all run stoppers. So if we're to find any more edge rushers, we have to look at the left or right end. There is Tremaine Allen, though his ratings don't look very good. Over at the left end spot, there's more pretty much just big boys. So we're about essentially out of drafting edge rushers. So where to go from there? Well, we haven't addressed any of the safety spots. And there is Donovan Buckner out of Navy, 6 foot 215. He's a run support safety. However, there are some intriguing skill sets here. C zone coverage, and at worst, man is also going to be a C. Could be better. He would be a strong safety for sure, but he has some catching, some tackling, some pursuit. Injury, again, is a little bit of a concern. Awareness could be great, could be eh. As for his physicals, for a strong safety, these are not bad, and I'd be perfectly fine going at that spot here. So Donovan Buckner is definitely an option. However, there's also that running back we talked about earlier who could be an option. Again, he's an elusive back, so that trucking probably isn't going to end up being too high, but he might be a pretty well balanced running back, and that's definitely something we could use here. We also have an intriguing receiver in Sheriff Scruggs, a great name. 6'3", 228, 21 years old, out of Grand Valley State. He's around 3 to 4 projection, so we're definitely past that. And despite him having a larger frame, he doesn't run all too slowly, at least the top end speed. The agility and the acceleration are a little bit slow, but we have solid hands. We just don't expect great route running. He's a little bit of an unknown, but I think we can find another receiver here, then go with that safety, and then maybe look for one more defensive lineman before we call this draft done. So let's bring in Sheriff Scruggs, a normal dev with 90 speed, 68 strength, 90 acceleration, and that's at least going to fill out our receiver group. Though as it just keeps happening late on here, the safety did end up going in Buckner, so that kind of limits the safety options we have. I mean, there might be some decent guys here, but none that are really speaking out to me. We do know that with Earl Ferguson, you're going to have some man coverage with that being a B, but then D zone, and we saw how much that really struggled or really impacted our defense with Sidney Brown. We'd like to have a little bit more balance there than that, and we're just really not seeing it here. However, the running back is still there in Matt Toller. We could go his way, or we have a couple defensive linemen. Let's go through those first. Rashawn Johnson at left end out of USC. He's 6'6", 296, 21 years old. He's listed as a run stopper. He's not very fast. He's got some decent strength to his game. And again, listed as a run stopper. With power moves being a C, I'd imagine the block shedding is at least a C, maybe a B, though he's not going to bring much of any finesse moves. At right end, you have Nick Livingston, another day 3 out of Southern Miss. He's 6'5", 312, another run stopper. He's a little bit faster, not as strong, but you're going to have at least the for sure ratings. C for block shed and power with D finesse, which is a slight improvement over the others' finesse. And then lastly, at DT, you have Terrell Wagner out of Buffalo, 6'5", 303. He's a power rusher at 23, so the older of the bunch, but he runs sub 5. He has just as good bench reps, if not better. But again, you're not for sure on what their ratings are. At worst, none of them are an F, which is an improvement off the first guy. Again, he's a power rusher, with the power moves being a B to a D. Finesse is already listed as a C. So it could very well be another CC and a D, or it could be a BC and a D, or BCC. I feel like there might be more of a higher ceiling here with Wagner. Injury. Play rec is awful, but we just need him to hit the guy in front of him. So let's go with Terrell Wagner. A normal dev, 88 strength, 80 jumping, 74 speed. We're adding depth to a spot that needed it. And now, considering we've already drafted a bunch of people, I am not going to use any of these 6th and 7th round picks. I don't even know how we got all of these 6th and 7th round picks. So this will be our final draftee. Where do we go? Well, again, we've talked about the running back. Toller is still there. Or do we go after one more defensive lineman? Johnson's still there, as well as Nick Livingston. I feel like we could use a little bit of help at running back, but we're surprisingly not going to go after Toller. I think he might still be solid, but I feel like the type of running back we're looking for, that is what we're going to find in Brian Berry. Out of California, he's a power back, 5'10", 223, 23 years old. So a little bit older, a little bit slower, much more strength to his game. Catching still could be solid. With B carrying and ball carrier vision, A break tackle, he has B spin move and A trucking. He might not be a super high overall. We've seen not very high overalls do well. But I feel like he fits the style of back that we're looking to complement Hubbard with. So we're going to go with Brian Berry. He's a normal dev, 90 speed at 232 pounds, 82 strength, 91 acceleration. Now let's meet this class. Or I guess you'd actually prefer to see what we're trading for what. So we are going to send these bunches of picks to someone, and I think the Jaguars have the best offer here. 3rd next year plus a 7, and it'll be another pick inside the top 100. So sure, let's send these to the Jags. They can have fun bringing in all these low 60s overall players. And we got one more bundle. And the Jaguars just seem extremely hungry for some picks. So why not? We'll give them the second bundle. I did try with the Cowboys and the Bills, who also offered a 4th rounder, but I couldn't trade with them due to salary caps. So the Jaguars, they're getting all of our picks. And now that will end our draft. Now we could go meet our draftees. And now I'm a little bit confused because we just saw that I traded all of these, and now it's saying that I still have these picks. So I don't know if I just broke Madden here, but it is still saying that I have the picks in the draft, yet it's not saying that I actually have these picks. So I guess while we're here, let's just skip forward one and see if the Jaguars actually pick someone. Okay, and they do, though it's still saying that I have picks. I'm just going to jump through these, and we'll see what ends up happening at the end. And the Jaguars definitely had all of their selections. So just quickly before we get into our selections, they drafted a 63 overall tight end, a 72 overall receiver, 66 safety, 65 safety, 68 DT and quarterback, 65 center, 66 left guard, 63 right end, a 69 outside linebacker, 63 running back, and a 64 offensive lineman. So most of these guys are probably going to be depth, rotational, but they did find a couple guys who might actually contribute from these picks. So there you go, the Jags. Hopefully I just gave you all of the depth players you needed. But as for us, here is our draft class, and we are going to have to scroll. So far, the highest overall I see is a 76. We did find a 71 late on. I was good on that selection, but let's start from the top. Quincy McCullough, the 74 hidden dev, and he ends up with some boosts from our coaches. 83 power moves, 75 block shed. That looks great to start off with. Hopefully he does well in between episodes as well, between today and Thursday. I'm going to go through and edit all these players, give them a nice looking style, maybe change up their numbers a little bit as well. But Quincy McCullough looking good. Need to raise up the tackling a little bit. Awareness and play work at good spots to start off with. And injury is an 89, so not bad. Now, James Castaneda did end up being the highest overall at a 76, but only the normal dev. And he ends up having 77 block shed with 71 power moves. So he's definitely going to get out on the defensive line. He's going to be a day one starter, probably at that right end spot, considering he does have 72 speed with a little bit of some acceleration. It's actually pretty decent, up at an 80. 92 strength looks good. Injuries an 84. It's a good thing we did bring in a lot of rotational guys as well, just in case someone gets injured. Hopefully he doesn't, knock on wood. As for the center and Max Clifton, he is a 71, so it's a lateral move in terms of overall, but staying young compared to someone like Bozeman. And yeah, he definitely needs to work on some of that power. We need that at least up in the 70s. But I think we give him the start. Again, he's that hidden dev. He's got some decent lead block. We'll definitely let him rock a little bit. But all in all, again, third round pick, starting offensive talent. Now, as for Chason, the falling receiver from the round 1 to 2, he only ends up being a 68. He's a normal dev, and the route running, nothing spectacular, but solid, very well-rounded, solid hands, good release even. Now, does it tell me anything about run blocking? 50. I mean, technically, I think he could do a job at tight end. He's not going to be a great run blocker, but he could potentially do a job. We'll see if we need to put him there, but for now, I think that's a solid depth receiver, much cheaper than he would have been if he was actually a round 1 to 2 drafted receiver. And as for that linebacker that I drafted, a day 3 talent, we took in the 4th round, I believe, exactly what I suspected. He is a day 1 starter at 73 overall, hidden dev. He's coming in with pretty decent coverage ability. He's a run stopper straight out the get-go. So we have a rotation at linebacker for the future, though. Injuries a 77, so again, it's a good thing we are 3 deep in a 3-4. Now, one we didn't quite hit on was Donovan Callaway, the tight end. A 66, he's coming in the lowest overall of our tight ends. And he's got some work to do. Hands a little bit lighter than I actually expected they would be. Got some route running to sort out, but is going to at least provide some depth for us with good injury. Does he have decent lead block? Not really, 52. So it's not going to be a great fullback, but we get some depth. And that's really what all these guys are going to be moving down the line. Luke Emery, the defensive lineman, a 64 normal dev who's got some strength, but he's got to find what he does. Rotational guy. We'll see if he makes the final roster this year. Now, surprisingly, Sheriff Scruggs is a slightly higher overall than that of the round 1 to 2 that we caught earlier. 69 normal dev. And again, might provide some position flexibility, but very similar style of receiver to that of what we got earlier. And his run blocking is a little bit higher. It's closer to 60. Injury a little bit lower at an 80. And he is 6'3", 228. So still would be light for a tight end, but we might need to try both of them at tight end and see if either one of them sticks at it. And as we're starting to round out the group here, Terrell Wagner, our second to last pick, is a 63 normal dev. Again, depth guy here, but I do have to say a more well-rounded, more developed rotational depth guy, considering the block shedding is at a 68 as well as the power moves being 69. His injury looks solid, so yeah, he's definitely going to be a rotational guy for us, filling out the bottom of the interior of our defensive line. And then lastly, we went with Brian Barry instead of the other running back, Tolles, I believe it was, that we've talked about previously. He ends up being a 71 normal dev with good speed, good break tackle all around. I'm seeing starting talent here. Change of direction is a little bit low. Some pretty solid hands. Injuries at a pretty good spot as well. I mean, yeah, sure, the route runnings and all those, they're not very well polished. But as long as we could get him in open space and he holds onto the ball, we might be able to get him out there and then start trucking over some corners, which could be pretty fun. Well, let's check up on our opponents, and it was a very light draft here from the Saints. Only 3 picks, a first, third, and a sixth, though they hit on their first 2, and honestly a 6th round outside linebacker in Connor Wallner being a 68, not too bad. But as for the quarterback we're going to be facing, it's a hidden dev in Aaron Schmidt out of Oklahoma State. He's 73. He's got a solid arm. He looks to be more of a deep ball kind of guy with not much speed, so hopefully we're just teeing up pass rush on them. As for the Buccaneers, a much more full class as they have all 7 picks, But after the first two, no one else is in the 70s. They did get an offensive lineman in Luke Eubanks in the first round. He's a hidden dev, 74 overall, and he's definitely more of a power blocker. We don't quite have any finesse rushers left on our team, so we'll see how they do, but he's not a polished power guy by any means, so we might be able to get around Luke Eubanks. As for the safety they drafted, Matt Downs, another hidden dev at 73. Now, where he's playing at safety, I'm not sure. I might need to adjust some rosters to put guys in spots where they could play, but he's got some speed and acceleration, good zone coverage. That's definitely similar to the kind of safety, free safety, I'm looking to find for us for the future. Did not achieve that today, at least not yet. We still have Horn. That might be a big trade to start us off next time. We will see. But after Downs, they do get an outside backer, 67, a center, 65, DT, 67, left end, 68, and another safety in 67. So they got some depth, guys. Pretty well-rounded class, though. Then the Falcons. Now, they definitely had the better draft of all of our rivals here. They went after a running back in the first round. Why? Jonathan Justice, a 74 overall. Please tell me he's at least hidden dev. Okay. Out of Oklahoma, they did not need another running back. They had Bijan. I don't think Algier left. Maybe he did. But either way, it seems like a waste of a pick to me. But hey, that's fine. You're a rival. Waste your picks. They did get a receiver in the second round in Jamison Davis, a 76. I don't remember if he was on my board. Probably not with the size. But hidden dev. And he's a deep route runner with some speed. They then went after Andrew O'Neal, a tight end. Now, he was one that was on my board. We went in a different direction, and I think we got very similar style of tight ends here. But later on, they would actually double dip at receiver and go with David Leonard. And I do believe he was on my list, just wasn't prototypical size, but he's very much a short route runner, a little bit of medium, nothing deep. He's not super fast. He's got some decent hands, but all around, I don't think he was a good fit for us. So he ends up on a team we're going to play against. They also get a fullback and then a center and running back later on. In terms of the highest overall player, it was Tim Horn. The top 5 projection, that definitely was top 5. Though he did not actually go first overall, 80 overall, hidden dev to the Seahawks with tremendous finesse moves to start off with. Power moves look really good. Yeah, he would have been a fantastic talent. Not someone we could have went with because they actually picked before. So I think I said 4th overall. I think it was actually 3rd overall. Either way, tremendous talent. The Seahawks, they got a dude for the future. And on top of that, they also got the highest rated quarterback in this class, a 74, one higher than Schmidt, who we checked earlier. In the second round, too. 74, hidden dev. Yeah, solid guy across the board. Mold him however you want. Doesn't have much speed to get to the outside, but can maneuver the pocket. Yeah, pretty good fit for them. 6'5", 235, 22 years old, out of Utah. Now, the running back we didn't end up going with was Matt Toller, and he is a hidden dev, 70 overall, so a little bit of a trade-off there. And yeah, he also would have been very much a similar talent to what we were looking for, but we wanted a little bit more forward of the strength asset, and we got the guy that does that. We just don't end up with the hidden dev. But Matt Toller definitely could have been a guy. He's just going to be with the 49ers and going to learn behind Christian McCaffrey, which clearly that worked for Hubbard. Might do the same for him. And as we get to the end of the moves, at least we're making today, it will wait on Horn. I do expect a trade, though, to start us off next time on Thursday. We'll see what it's going to be for, whether it's picks or maybe we try to address a position. We actually have 28.7 mil still left in cap, so we're sitting well, and we've done a lot to improve this team today. For a quick recap, well, first off, the highest rated player on this team is a new addition in Greg Newsome, and we have a couple guys that are definitely slotting in the top 10. Position by position, we didn't address quarterback. We might find a UDFA quarterback to just slot on here for the practice squad. Running back, didn't really do much. We brought in Brian Barry, and we might still bring back Barlow. And then, who knows, we might end up letting Cam Akers go. We will see. As for receiver, we brought in Rashad Bateman, a new number 1 here for us. making Juwan Jennings expendable. Might be someone we end up trading or just keeping around for depth. We also ended up drafting Scruggs as well as Chason. And then coming off of our practice squad from last year, we do have St. Clair and Devin Tompkins, though Tompkins likely to be cut. Melo St. Clair, we really didn't even take a look at. And honestly, I don't even know much about him. He's got some decent hands, not much of a release, a raw route runner. We'll see if he makes the team. As for tight end, we did bring in Callaway. Not necessarily the overall we were hoping to eventually take over for Hayden Hurst, but he's still rocking with us for now. We'll see how he does early on in the season, and then that'll give us an idea of where we need to go for the next offseason. As for the offensive line, we gave the 5th-year option for Ekwonu, and he's going to move to right tackle, as we will give Jedrick Wills the start at left tackle, the pure pass protector. Left guard, well, that's going to be a handful of different options. We could put Clifton in there straight away, or Max Mitchell could go ahead and slot over there, as we do also have Walker Little. We've got options for this offensive line. We'll mess around. We'll put the best guys where they line up best and go from there. Defensive line did see a lot of improvement. Cameron Jordan comes in. He wanted 1 more year and really wanted to come here because he wanted to play against the Saints. As for the right end, well, that's going to be the rookie in James Castaneda, as we will give Grover Stewart 1 more year here, see how well he does, and then Castaneda most likely will step in and fill that role. Sweat will probably continue to be primarily a DT, it's just the speed not quite there. But we did just add some guys in general for depth, most of which are listed all here at DT. So we'll have to move some guys around. Outside linebackers, they all come in over on the right-hand side with Owe, and then the rookie in Quincy McCullough. Both will be the starters. Wanham might be traded, might just stay as depth, because I don't think he would actually have that much in terms of trade ability. We brought in another middle linebacker in Britton Hartwell, coming in at a 73. We've got our 3 guys for the future with Hartwell, Hodgins, and Stockton. Deion Jones, I mean, at this point, with us having Hartwell, we very well could look to maybe trade Deion Jones to a Super Bowl competitor who just needs some depth at that spot. As for corner, we know about Newsome. We also brought in St. Juste, as well as with a trade, Devontae Johnson. So we are solid at corner for the future. J.C. Horn will be traded next episode. As for the safety spot, we really weren't able to address anything here. We did bring back George Shepard. We'll see who gets the start where. We still might end up keeping Sidney Brown, and he just will be a backup. Gardner Johnson goes over to strong safety. Maybe we give Shepard a shot. He's only 23, and he needs the opportunity to prove himself. So we've got some rotation at safety at least. Now, we still need to go after a kicker and punter. And luckily for us, no one went and signed Cole Ford, so we will be bringing him back. He was fantastic for us last year. He is still a superstar, and that leaves us needing a punter. So let's see, are there any really good young punters that we could just keep around for the future here? And it looks like the one with the best leg would be Connor Main, with 93 kick power, 75 accuracy, 50 awareness. Probably not great, but it should do just fine here for punter, and hopefully we're not using him much. But that will do it for us here today. An offseason that saw a lot of change come to this team, and after we get the roster fully changed, players moved around, practice squad set, we'll see the new overalls for our offense, defense, and just overall team. I feel like we saw a lot of improvement happen today. Offensive line, maybe not anything drastic right now, but maybe a lateral step, and then hopefully some young guys to come in. We'll see what all moves we make. Again, there's Horn, and he can maybe be used to trade for an offensive lineman or a safety. Let me know what you think down below. But that will start us off next time. I'll get everything set, and we'll be in week 1 to kick off season 3 on Thursday. So make sure you hit that barrack on the bottom right, or scroll down and hit the sub button if you have not already. And while you're down there, tap the bell icon so you're notified of when these videos go live. This series is every single Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. So we'll start week 1 on Thursday. In between today And then you'll have the state-only challenge that is every Wednesday and Saturday, as it is the Central States, Arkansas, Missouri, and Nebraska, as we're getting into season 3, really needing that team to take a step forward. So let's see if we can do that tomorrow, and we'll see how much improved this team is on Thursday. So we will see you then as we start season 3.